So, welcome back to this larger than expected section on self-marking homework quizzes. I split it into two simply because there actually is a huge amount of detail with these quizzes. So in the first video we looked at setting them, and today we're going to look at completing them and analysing the results and maybe editing the results if you need to do that. So you can see here a quiz assignment that I set for the Year 8. 138 have been marked and approved by me. 6 of them have been completed but not yet approved by me, and this is the one that I've just set for myself and I'm going to complete now. So this is assigned but not yet completed. As the student now, so this is me as the student rather than the teacher, I've been assigned this quiz. So I will go to my assignment as normal and I will click on the quiz. It will tell me which account is being used for this quiz, and students will be able to switch account if they're not signed in with the correct Google account. It is quite important they're signed in with an Ulster GS account, otherwise the test scores won't match up with your gradebook. So I can begin to go through this test. So first question, give the name of layer A, tick box, multiple choice. Here's an example where a hint might have been helpful to the students. A is a gas, give the formula of gas A. I've written carbon dioxide. Now here you could have set up the quiz so that if I type more than 5 or 6 characters, it could have said give the formula as a prompt. I haven't done it in this occasion, but this is where that might be useful. So once I've got to the bottom of this quiz, I can just click submit. Now, this is where if I had enabled it, the students would now be able to immediately get back their score and see which questions they got right, which questions they got wrong, and indeed what their peers had answered. But I've turned all of those off. So the students don't immediately get their score. They don't see what the other students have done and answered, and they cannot yet see which questions they got right and wrong. As the teacher, I need to release it before they can do that. Going back to the teacher view, you can now see that that quiz has moved from assigned to handed in as the assignment has been completed by me. To check scores, edit any answers, I need to go into the Google form. And I can do that by clicking on the form here. And here's the crucial thing. If you're an editor and you have permissions, there will be this icon down in the bottom right hand corner, this pen icon, and you want to click on that. Now, as well as being able to edit the quiz if you so wish, and occasionally I have done that when I've realised midway through a test that the first couple of responses come in and the question didn't quite make sense, you can edit them while they're live. But more useful is this responses tab here, and you can see I've currently got 132 responses to this Google form. So the first thing to note is that this form is still accepting responses, and that means that it's still live. For some reasons you may want to turn this off temporarily, but at the moment students can still fill in that quiz. There's 3 really useful tabs here: summary, question, individual. A summary is exactly that. It gives you the distribution of the points, it gives you the range, the median and the average. It also, and we saw this before in the very first video, it also tells you what the most poorly answered questions were. So you can see the questions 4, C, D and E were pretty poorly answered. Question 7, 9, B, etc. And this might be helpful to target future work, feedback exercises, that sort of thing. It tells you if anyone is still needing to do the quiz, and then it goes through and it gives a breakdown. Now, where you've got a short answer question, it gives you all the different answers that were produced. So you can see the name of layer A, crust with a capital C, crust with a lowercase c were the most common questions, but crust, Earth's crust, the crust, the crust, spelled slightly differently, and upper crust. Tick box answers, again you can see most people getting the right answers for those. most people are getting the right answer for those multiple choice questions. For some questions, a huge array of answers, far too many actually to show in a grid like this. So the summary tab does exactly that. It gives you a summary, and that will be useful for helping you to identify where feedback needs to happen. If you want to look at a particular individual's responses, you can click on individual, and these are arranged in the order in which they were submitted. So here's me right at the end, and for this particular test I can go through if I want to have a look. Yes, yes, no. Now, if I decide actually I do want to give credit for this particular question, that nickel, I knew what I was talking about, that's where I can just click up here and give 1 mark for that question. And having edited it, this will appear at the bottom saying edits are pending, do you wish to save them? Notice that this is showing for all wrong answers what the correct answers were below, because every question in this self-marking quiz has been associated with a right answer. Another very useful feature, right at the bottom, it tells you exactly when the quiz was submitted, so you can see whether or not it was submitted on time, perhaps after results were released to other students, and that is recorded down the bottom. Now, a glitch coming up here. You'll notice I haven't saved the edits yet. If another response comes in while you are editing, then all of your changes, if you haven't clicked save, will be rejected. This is not such a problem on a short answer quiz like this, but when we move to longer response questions, if you have spent a long time marking a script, you do not want a new response to come in and undo all of your changes. So at that point, I would turn off accepting responses while you are marking scripts to prevent that issue. When you're ready, click save. If you want, you can release the score individually back to the student by clicking on release score and send emails and release down there. If you want to release scores to all students at the same time from Google Forms, you can click on all respondents and click it again to remove them. An optional message at the top can also be sent if you wish, but I'm not going to release this just yet. A very useful feature, particularly for short answer questions, is this question tab in the middle. And this is where responses are grouped by question. So firstly, if you want to mark it blind without knowing which student gave each response, this is the way to do it. You have no idea which student has given which response, and therefore it adds a layer of fairness to that. Secondly, it groups responses. 66 students have said crust, that's marked as correct. Crust with a capital, the crust, the crust, the crust. And you can choose the particular question. So here, for example, 3 students have given the answer lava flow. I've already marked it right for 2 responses. That response clearly should also get the credit. The 7 students that said magma, though, are not getting credit. I can even click wrong if I wish, or I can just leave that blank. So I'm going to save that. This feature is not so useful for multiple choice questions, but for short answer, where you quickly want to see a group of students who've given the same answer, do they deserve credit? Another example of that, carbon capture, 9 responses correct, carbon capture and storage correct, carbon capture correct, carbon capture and storage close enough, carbon cycle no, carbon cycle without a capital no, carbon storage yes. So very useful for short answer questions where you cannot predict every variation that the students might give for a particular answer, spelling, capitalisation, spaces, etc. You can quickly scroll through the short answer questions and say yes or no to any answers you didn't predict at the start. So just a couple of more things before we leave the Google form. If you need to add somebody else who you want to help you share the marking or see the results or edit the results, that can be done up here by adding collaborators. You can send the form directly to somebody if you need to using this button, or if you want to export all of the responses as a spreadsheet, you can click on this button here, which will allow you to either record your responses in a new spreadsheet or even append them to an existing spreadsheet if you wish. So there you go, all the data you could ever need, the time the form was submitted, the email address, the score, and their answers, and that may be useful to some of you. I'm now going to close the form and go back to the classroom. Now here, there should be an import grades button in the top right corner, and you can see I last imported the grades on the 27th of June. If you have attached any other file to this assignment other than the test itself, the form itself, you will not have that button, and you will need to go back into the instructions and remove any extra files. So if you are desperate to attach some other file to the form, then you can, but then you need to go back into the instructions, remove that extra file, not the form, and that button should appear. So if you've got that button, import grades, this will overwrite all grades in the classroom according to the Google form grades. And down here, you can now see that all of these students, including me, now have a draft score in Google Classroom. If you are happy with those scores, you can select the students and return the work, leaving a private comment if you wish. And notice that now my form, Nixon student, has moved from handed in to marked. To return a lot at once, you can click a specific group like handed in and return all grades simultaneously. But I'm not going to do that because I haven't checked through all their answers yet. You can look at a particular student by clicking on their name, clicking on the form, and you will have their specific answers in Google Form. So if you wanted to just look at the answers without any editing, that's how you would do that. Finally, what does the student see? Well, once you have returned the scores, they will get an email. They immediately get the score they got, 24 out of 46, and they can open it. That will take them directly to their assignment. Clicking on the form brings up the form. Now, because I said that they were able to see the right answers, the points, values, when I set up the form, this means the student can see when they got something right and how many points it was worth. They can see when they got something wrong. These are the correct answers, but also this was the one where I actually said it was worth 1 point. So that will highlight to them that they've spelt it incorrectly, but that they did get the point. For something like this, where they got a row wrong, they are shown the correct answer. And when something is just wrong, they don't get a mark and they can see what the correct answer was. Well, I hope that was useful. In the following videos, we will look at more complicated quizzes involving a bit more user input from you to mark longer answer questions and file submissions. And we will look at the mark book to see how you would deal with all of these grades that you've just generated. Bye.